Yeah, because everybody, because we'll continue on with a game called Cabin Fever. Ha! Let's load. Where were we? Here. What are we waiting for? Let's see. Configuration. Text speed is, yeah. Right. Pay me back for what, though? I only wanted to help, and I hadn't even done a great job of it. And now I was trying to send her away knowing full well she had nowhere to go. Yeah, such a dick move. No, I couldn't do that. Now I felt like I had to make things up to her. I tidied up quickly from supper and returned to my computer, where I booted up my 3D printer. I didn't use the thing often, but it was there for emergencies, and this seemed urgent enough. I managed to find a design that was close to what I'd imagined, and I set everything up, stood back to watch the printer do its thing. Just then, Mallory emerged wearing her dress.
Oh, you already cleaned up. I guess that's it then.
She stood beside the table, leaning on it for support. I stood in front of the printer while it worked. I didn't know what to say, so I decided to just let words come out of my mouth.
You should stay. Also, I'm sorry. I've been a total asshat to you.
Oh wow, he's self-aware. She looked up at me, nervously clutching the sides of her dress in her tiny hands. Her mouth open and closed like she didn't know what to say either, so I just kept going.
It was kind of a shock to have you show up here. I haven't had anyone visit, ever, because this has always been my space, my family space. I guess I felt sort of invaded. But now I realize that's stupid. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I wouldn't feel right making you leave when you're clearly in a bad spot. I have the means to help you, and there's no reason why I shouldn't. If you want to leave, that's fine, but there's no rush. Cool?
She smiled softly, her eyes seeming to glitter.
Cool.
Behind me, the 3D printer finished its work. I turned around to take the sheet of gauze with the cute potato pattern I'd printed, hoping it would amuse her and lighten the mood.
Can I redress your leg now?
The pattern on the gauze made her giggle, and she nodded and sat down, propping her leg up. Prepared once again for the uncomfortable closeness that was necessary for this task, I scrubbed my hands, put on a mask and a pair of gloves. I went to sit by her with a first aid kit. We chatted idly as I cleaned and packed her wound. Afterwards, I got her set up on the couch and bid her good night. I wasn't exactly tired, but I figured it was better to leave things off on a pleasant note before things got awkward again. I climbed up the stairs to my loft and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling above me. Thought about how angry I'd been with her actions that morning. Thought about how scared and uncomfortable I'd felt throughout the day. How was it that now, a matter of hours later, I could feel such a gentle fondness for the very same person who'd made me so upset? Moody hermit, I accused myself. Yeah, you're probably right, I thought in reply. And with that, I closed my eyes and waited for sleep. Chapter 4, Growth. I slept soundly that night and woke up feeling surprisingly good. The sun was shining, my body and mind were refreshed, and once again something smelled delicious in a kitcheny kind of way. Hey, I could get used to this, thought my brain. It rolled my eyes at myself as I hopped out of bed. This was the start of a new routine. It had to be. Mallory was here now, and I didn't want either one of us taking advantage of the other. I wondered if she'd like to learn about the systems I had set up for off-grid living. I definitely needed her to understand why certain things were important, like conserving water, obviously, but she might actually enjoy being involved with the work I did on the daily. Maybe we could share the load. She could be the Sam to my Frodo. My heart felt kind of bright and big at the thought of having a friend, even if just for a while. It was something to break up the mind-numbing monotony of that sweet post-apocalypse lifestyle I've been living. I could be an okay teacher. I thought a few online courses before for beginners wanting to learn C#. Teaching someone how to feed a chicken shouldn't be any harder than that. I treaded softly down the stairs and snuck into the kitchen. Some egg medley bubbled away in a skillet, and a pot of rice was boiling over. Mallory stood with her back to me, struggling to reach something high up in the cupboard.
Your pot is boiling.
Oh, you surprised me. Good morning. How did you sleep?
Awesome. She moved back to the stove to transfer the rice off the heat. Then she picked up the skillet and gave the eggs a good toss.
I slept okay. How about you?
She smiled, wiping her hands on her apron. It was my mother's apron, actually, and I was pleasantly surprised to see it. It had been tucked away in the bottom drawer and forgotten about for a long time.
Great. Your couch is super comfy, and that blanket is so cozy and warm.
She needs her own room.
Good. I'm glad.
My gaze drifted to the open cupboard behind Mallory.
Did you need something from up there?
She looked back at the cupboard and let out a nervous giggle.
Yes, please. I was looking for aspirin and I thought I saw a bottle up there, but I couldn't really reach. I didn't want to risk standing up on a chair or something with my leg.
Is it getting more painful? I did notice a little redness yesterday, but I didn't think it was infected. Unless... Wait, you're not feeling sick, are you?
No, it's just the leg. It's a bit achy.
I motioned for her to switch places with me, keeping some distance between us while I reached up and grabbed the aspirin bottle out of the cupboard. It was still half full, yet I hesitated a moment, reluctant to share my supply. But then I could order more, along with that first aid kit I needed to replace. I set the bottle on the counter and stepped away so Mallory could take it. She smiled so brightly that dimples appeared in her cheeks.
Thank you so much. You're the best.
I pressed my lips together, trying not to smile. Oh God, we got complimented by a pretty girl. We were still standing too close to one another. I took another few steps back, clearing my throat.
Maybe it's time for another temperature check, just to be sure.
I went to grab the scanner and came back.
Could you, move your hair?
She lifted her bangs off her forehead so I could get a clearer reading with the temperature scanner. After a few moments, the happy sound of one beep let me know she was fever-free.
Okay, you're good. But we should keep distancing until enough time has passed to know for sure.
Mallory nodded as she untied her apron. Then she did a little twirl on her good leg and offered me a plate.
How's this for a second attempt at breakfast?
The food looked glorious. I knew the eggs were fresh because I collected them myself just a few days prior, but still, what she had done with them was beyond impressive. Rough chopped vegetables and herbs gave splashes of color to the omelet, which was stuffed with steaming hot rice speckled with even more seasonings. The whole thing had a downright heavenly aroma. Suddenly, some good old Shakespeare came into my brain. Did my heart love till now, forswear its sight, for I never saw true beauty till this breakfast. I thought to myself, you are a nerd.
Well, you seem to have learned how to use the stove properly.
She blushed. Oh no, I hope I hadn't embarrassed her. I meant it as a jokey, complimenty thing. You've been alone too long, I said to my brain.
Really, this is amazing, and I don't deserve it.
We enjoyed our breakfast at the dining room table, sitting across from each other just like the previous night. Through the great big windows at Mallory's back, the yard looked bright and inviting.
Looks like we'll have great weather today. I was thinking of doing some work in the garden for a while. A place like this needs a lot of maintenance. 10 acres of green space, all the off-grid systems. It's a constant running to-do list to keep everything going.
It seems pretty amazing. Is it hard to take care of it all by yourself?
It can be hard work, but it's worth it.
Well, what can I do to help?
I looked at her, a little surprised. Wait, there's... Yes. Ask her to join you in the garden.
I suppose you could join me if you'd like. Some fresh air might help you feel rejuvenated, speed up your healing. I could show you a little bit about my setup too. Introduce you to the hens.
She startled as though I had woken her up from a daydream. Her eyes, bright and beautiful, locked onto mine. Wow, was all I could think.
You have hens? Like little chickens that actually run around going cluck cluck? For real?
I laughed. It hadn't occurred to me that she might not have ever seen one before, but if she came from the city, which I sort of assumed she did, then it made sense. Her childlike excitement over something so normal to me warmed my heart against its will.
Yeah, I have fish too. You want to meet them?
She raised excited fists, practically bouncing in her seat.
Yes, I do. I really do.
Okay, let's head outside then.
She jumped up, the very definition of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Her enthusiasm was infectious. It made me feel more lively too. I thought about insisting we both mask up if we were going to be spending the day in close proximity, but I thought about it some more, and since we'd be outside with lots of space all around, since neither of us had any symptoms, I imagined it would be fine. As we headed outside, I offered Mallory a jacket. She declined. I was skeptical that she'd been warm enough in her threadbare dress, but it was her call. At least the sun was warm today, and there wasn't much wind. I let Mallory lead the way through the garden. She would stop to examine all the different growing things, all the fruits and vegetables, more than enough for one person. I often had an overabundance of produce, so I would end up canning a lot of it. Except for those potatoes, R.I.P. Low.
Oh my gosh! Are these strawberries?
There she stood in its strawberry patch, a look of total wonderment on her face.
They look so plump and juicy, and they're so red. How did you grow them?
They're actually the easiest thing to maintain around here. They grow like weeds. Pretty much every year I get 3 whole harvests out of this patch.
Really? What do you do with all of them?
I make my own jams, put them in salads, make smoothies, things like that. I dehydrate some for easy snacking too, but I think they're best right off the bush. You're welcome to have some.
Her eyes widened. They were huge, and they were actually twinkling now. How did you do that?
I've never eaten a strawberry before. Are you sure?
Never? Jeez. Yeah, help yourself. Just put your index finger and thumb right behind the stem and pinch it off.
I watched her reach out in search of the perfect strawberry to pluck.
Watch out for slugs.
She paused, stuck her tongue out at me in jest, and selected her perfect first strawberry.
Oh, wow. These taste just like sunshine. I could eat these every day.
You can taste sunshine?
Feast away.
I couldn't help but want to offer her everything just then. The happiness radiating off of her was like addictive or something.
Oh, look. This one's shaped like a heart. Ooh, this one here is huge. Look how shiny and red it is. It's like something out of a picture book. Oh, there's a little bug munching on that one. Enjoy your meal, little bug.
I smiled to myself. While Mallory chattered away, eating strawberries by the handful, I picked up my rake and started taking care of the fallen leaves that were encroaching on the garden. Mallory noticed and came over.
Can I do that?
Her smile was brighter than the sky above us.
Oh, no, that's okay. You need to go easy on your leg.
My leg feels fine. Please?
She just looked so earnest. Reluctantly, I passed her the rake. While Mallory took care of the raking, I made my way to the other end of the garden, where I worked at pulling up weeds. Pretty soon I had a bucket almost filled. When I looked around for Mallory, I saw her standing beside her leaf pile in progress, pausing to catch her breath. I felt bad for letting her take on the raking. She'd probably end up feeling pretty sore afterwards. Still, it was nice to have the help. Could already tell that the chores would go quicker this way. I watched her until she'd finished her little break, gone back to raking, or rather until she spotted me looking at her, gave me a big thumbs up, which I pretended I hadn't seen.
Do-do-do, pulling up weeds.
Shook my head at myself, tossing another fistful of leafy stalks into the bucket. Something about this girl stirred up my insides. She was like a cartoon princess, too happy and determined, almost too good to be real. Uh-oh. Is she just a delusion? I, for one, definitely wouldn't have been tough enough to pick up a rake with a leg injury like that. If anything, I'd sat on my couch playing video games until it healed. So I guess I felt a feeling that was partway between admiration and total bewilderment. Because there, Mallory was, her pale skin glistening as she did my yard work for me, her dress swaying and dancing around her thighs as she moved. Wait, am I still looking at her? I thought I went back to weeding. I had to put an end to this distraction. It looked like Mallory was just about finished anyway, so I carried my bucket over to her.
Looking good. Good work, I mean. Let's move all this stuff into the compost bin.
Okay. What's that?
I showed her the bin. As we filled it up with weeds and old leaves, I gave her the rundown.
Basically, I put all the dead plant matter and vegetable waste I have into the tumbler. Since it's a sealed container, it traps lots of heat inside and helps the stuff break down. See the handle on the side? I use that to turn the tumbler so everything gets mixed together. Then, once it's all broken down, I mix it in with the garden soil. The compost gives the soil extra nutrients, which helps the plants grow. It's kind of like the circle of life. I save all the peels and ends from the produce I eat, turn them into compost, and use that to grow more stuff. So the garden really provides its own nutrients for the next crop of plants that grow there.
Wow, that's amazing.
Honestly, everyone should be doing this. It's a big part of reducing waste.
Well, first of all, we had to buy land, which is like $1 million, and then a house, which is also a goddamn $1 million on a goddamn salary that can barely support a day. So yeah, no.
It's like a big, friendly leaf monster. Num num num.
What a fucking adorable little creature you are. She fed the last of the garden waste into the mouth of the bin, then patted the top of it as though praising a good dog. I nearly snorted with laughter. She was too pure for this world. Really? For a few moments, we stood together admiring the garden. It looked so clean and healthy now. Then with a twinge of anxiety, I noticed how close we were to one another, how closely we'd been working. But it was probably fine. She seemed healthy, more than healthy. She was handling her injury remarkably well. Was that the so-called power of positive thinking at work? Uh-oh. Never mind, I lurched backwards, looking at her in horror.
Are you feeling sick?
No, sorry. It's just my throat is dry. I'm really thirsty.
Oh, right. We'd been working for a while, and now that she mentioned it, I felt pretty parched too. Phew.
I'll go get us some water.
I dipped inside, took a few deep breaths, and went to fill up a couple of stainless steel water bottles. Everything was fine. God, it's raining so hard. Again? God damn, December. Her temperature had been normal from the get-go. She had no fatigue, no symptoms of the virus at all, apart from that one cough which was justified. Still, it was a reminder that I shouldn't be letting my guard down. When I returned outside, I found Mallory staring up at my roof, with one hand raised to shade her eyes from the intense sunlight.
What are those? They look like shields for your house.
Looked up at the roof where she was pointing.
Oh, sort of. They're solar panels. And they look like they could use a sweep, actually.
Why? What are they for?
They absorb energy from the sun and turn it into power for the cabin.
What? Really?
Here. Face toward the sun and spread your arms out.
She hesitated, then raised her arms up. She closed her eyes and tilted her head so that the sun lit up her pale face.
Feel the warmth? That's energy from the sun, or as I like to call it, the nuclear furnace that sits in the sky 150 million kilometers away from us. The solar panels take that energy and convert it into electricity. That current makes its way down to a charge controller, which turns the current into voltage for the batteries. My computer, appliances, and lights are all modified to run off that DC voltage. Oh, and the charge controller is hooked up to a battery that can store all that incoming energy. So we can still run the power for a while, even when the sun has gone away.
I hope my explanation made sense. For someone who'd never seen solar panels before, the concept might be a hard one to grasp.
So you capture the sunshine and turn it into energy? Isn't that like what flowers do?
Yeah, that's one way of thinking about it.
The twinkle in her eyes had returned. She continued to gaze up at the panels in awe.
It's like magic. If we'd had something like this where I grew up, then the citywide power outages wouldn't have mattered so much.
Her smile faded a little. Suddenly, the conversation felt heavy. I wanted to ask her to tell me more, but I was afraid.
Give me a few minutes to sweep the leaves off the roof. Then we can go say hi to the hens.
Ooh, okay.
They're over there, just FYI, in case I happen to fall to my death or something.
What?
Don't worry. If that happens, you can just bury me in the garden. My corpse will give lots of nutrients to the soil.
It's gonna smell a little funny, though. She gasped, clearly horrified, and I couldn't keep a straight face anymore. I laughed.
Don't kid around like that. It's not funny.
Sorry. I'll be back in a few. You rest.
I grabbed my ladder and broom from the shed and headed up onto the roof. I swept all the leaves off the solar panels and cleaned out the eaves strauss for good measure. Is that how you pronounce it? Eaves strauss? I don't know. Paused to gaze down at Mallory in the garden. She looked so at peace among all the plants, butterflies that gathered nearby on a patch of wildflowers, and she was smiling at them. I didn't think I'd ever seen a sweeter scene. I looked across the distant hills toward what remained of the city. That was where Mallory had come from, I'd assumed so, but now that she confirmed it with her comment about the power outages, the thought of her living there almost hurt. Even my rooftop, I could see how everything had fallen into disrepair. I remembered the long ago announcement that public buildings would be closing down indefinitely. Sports stadiums, movie theaters, malls, and the offices had all been shuttered. Even apartment complexes and private homes had to change. People were moved and shuffled around as fences went up and shared spaces became inaccessible. Anything to keep people apart from each other, or at least in their small safety bubbles. I hadn't set foot in the city in years, and looking at it now, I had no desire to ever set foot there again. With a sad sigh, I turned my back on the ghost city and climbed down from my roof. I met Mallory in the garden and forced a smile.
Ready?
She seemed so excited as we made our way over the kitchen coop. For a moment, I even thought I saw a spring of her step, but then I realized it was just her lip. Was the aspirin she'd taken wearing off already? The chickens clucked with extra enthusiasm when they saw that I had company. When I opened the door to their fenced-in area, some of them flapped their wings furiously, sending feathers flying and making Mallory laugh.
For as long as they've been alive, I've been alone. So they're either happy for me or scared of you. Not sure.
I pulled the gate shut behind us. Mallory was already saying hello to each individual chicken, giving them compliments and asking them how they were enjoying the morning. Then she saw the chicks, and she gasped.
Babies!
Did I not mention that? Yeah, they hatched a few days ago. You can pick them up if you want.
She looked up at me, her eyes doing that shimmery, sparkly thing again. I saw that there were tears there, and I thought, or hoped, that they were tears of joy.
They're so cute! Are you sure I can touch them? It looks like they'll break, they're so tiny.
Funny, that was exactly how I felt about her.
They'll be okay. Just gently scoop them up into your hands.
Okay.
She carefully held out her hands. Some of the chicks came closer, investigating her, and it didn't take long before a couple of them volunteered to step onto her palms. Mallory let out a small squeak and lifted the chicks up to her face. The chicks reciprocated with their own happy peeping noises, dancing in her hands as she stroked their golden down with a single fingertip.
They're so soft. I love them.
I believed her. It was weird. Couldn't fathom loving something so easily or so quickly, but Mallory did, and I had a hunch she'd have taken a bullet for those baby chicks.
Oh, sorry about the smell, by the way. I'm used to it, so I guess I forget that coops can get pretty smelly.
I don't find it bad at all.
She continued to pet and play with the little chicks. The whole scene was just too precious.
Do you want to feed them? There's a bag of grain just behind you.
She looked over her shoulder, smiling, and gently set down the chicks so that she could reach for the bag. She took out a small handful of grain and scattered it in front of her. The chicks started to eat, so the adult hens came to join them. All the chickens loved Mallory. They nibbled at her dress and danced around her as she fed them. The clucking intensified with every handful of grain, becoming so loud that Mallory started to laugh.
They're so happy.
I nodded.
I try to give them a good life, even if it's only a short one.
Huh? What do you mean?
Oh no. Why did I say that? What should I say next? She's too pure for this world. She must not know. Change the subject.
Well, short, because, chickens aren't very tall. You know what is tall, though? Aliens, I bet. So what are your thoughts on the possibility of intelligent extraterrestrial life, anyway?
Cool topic, but she's not gonna buy that.
You know, I thought I saw a UFO once, but it turned out it was just one of those wacky inflatable flailing arm things that got loose from a car lot.
I saw the look of dismay on Mallory's face and let my voice trail off. She stroked one of the baby chicks deep in thought.
I guess life is always too short, no matter who or what you are.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Mallory leaned down to nuzzle the chick again, whispering.
I love you, little chick. Have a really fun day, okay?
She giggled softly. Then she got to her feet and turned to face me.
Thank you for bringing me to meet them.
Of course. Anytime.
I cleared my throat and motioned for Mallory to lead the way back out of the coop. I followed her out, shutting the gate behind us.
Shall we head back inside?
She nodded as we strolled across the grass. I felt a little awkward when we went back into the cabin. There was an unhappy tension, but I didn't know if it was just me feeling guilty or something more. Tried to inject a little perkiness into my voice.
So, there was one more thing I really wanted to show you today. It's the most intricate and nerdy of all my systems, and by far my favorite.
She tilted her head questioningly.
Remember when I said I have fish? Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. The fish are actually part of a system I use to grow plants and food indoors. That way I can have at least some fresh things to eat in winter.
Oh?
It's called aquaponics, and it's really freaking cool. Come on, I'll show you.
She smiled softly like she was charmed by the idea. That was a relief.
Okay.
I led Mallory through my cabin to the aquaponics room. It was sort of tucked away, and since I always kept the door closed, it was easy to miss. Found myself oddly excited to show this to her. Felt almost proud as I opened the door, revealing the dim room on the other side.
Why is it so dark in here?
I know, the purple light is kind of strange. It's because those are grow lights. Their wavelength mimics the sun and gives the plants the specific red and blue light they need. It's a way of tricking them into thinking they're outdoors. Not that plants can think.
She smiled and she thought like I was maybe a little bit funny, which lifted my spirits even higher. I followed her all the way into the room. It wasn't something I acknowledged often, but this was my favorite place. Caring for the plants and the fish, watching them grow and change and live, gave me a feeling of connection I didn't quite get from the outdoor garden or the hens. I didn't even feel a connection like that with other humans, so no matter how many forums I joined or chats I took part in or emails I sent or received.
This is amazing.
Told ya.
I know, but I wasn't expecting so many plants. You have so much food.
I felt a twinge of guilt for how upset I've been over the potatoes she'd burned. She walked down the rows of potted vegetables and fish tanks, murmuring hello to the fish, examining the water feeding system and the grow lights. I imagined it all through her eyes, the eyes of someone seeing something like this for the first time. It must have seemed like a mad scientist's lair or something. She paused, peering more closely at one of the fish tanks.
Why are there plants growing out of the tank water?
Technically, they're not. They have their own water. It's just been cycled through the fish tank as well. That's how they get nutrients.
I pointed out the tubes that cycled the water.
It's like the circle of life, kind of. I feed the fish and they produce waste, which contains ammonium. That gets converted to nitrites and then into nitrates, which the plants can use to grow. These tubes carry the tank water up through a filter. The filter traps all the bits of waste and gunk that won't help the plants and lets the now nutrient-rich water run through and into the plant pots. It's all a careful balance, everything working in harmony. If I feed the fish and keep the filters clean, then they're able to take care of my plants for me.
Mallory watched the fish swimming lazily back and forth, her face filled with wonder. I grabbed a container of fish food and held it out.
Here, feed them. Just take a bit and sprinkle it in.
I smiled at her encouragingly.
Okay.
She took a pinch of fish food out of the container and gently sprinkled some flakes into the tank. The fish swam excitedly toward the flakes, opening and closing their mouths. Mallory smiled and gave them some more.
They're really hungry. Looking at them feels peaceful.
Yeah.
I watched her watching the fish, and I imagined showing her how to set up a system like this from scratch. I imagined us doing it together, planting the seeds of her favorite flower or a special fruit she'd never tried, celebrating the first bud and the first harvest. Mallory startled me by asking very suddenly,
Who taught you all of this?
She was too close. I took a step back and bumped into something shelving behind me. Could feel my face warming up.
Well, my parents used to take care of their plants sort of like this when I was young. And then I taught myself a bunch more by reading or by trial and error.
She shook her head a little, her gaze fixed somewhere far away.
My family had nothing like this. There was one grocery store in our neighborhood. We'd have to wait in line for ages, and then the shelves would be practically empty. We had to scrounge and make do with food that was either spoiled or just plain not enough. All these systems you use. If we could have had something like this, then maybe...
Yeah, it's easy for one person, but imagine a whole community. That's not gonna end up well. My stomach felt tight. This was it. She was opening up. She was finally going to tell me where she'd come from, what kind of life she'd had, maybe even what she'd been doing out in the rain that night. I didn't feel ready. Why was my heart beating so fast? She looked so somber as her mouth came open, hesitant. And then she said,
I love that you wanted to show me all this stuff, but, what do you do for fun around here?
She nudged me and gave me a cheeky little smile. Okay, so much for that idea. I forced my own smile, averting my eyes.
Yeah, I know. All work and no play. Yada yada. How about this? Let's go make some tea, get something to eat, and I'll show you my video games.
She nodded, suddenly grinning just as brightly as she had been that morning, as if the day had brought her no sadness at all. She said goodbye to all the fish and went back out into the brightly lit hall, followed and closed up the room behind us. We ended up spending most of the afternoon playing games on my tablet and snacking. When I showed Mallory my favorite retro game, the idle clicker with just the right balance of dopamine-inducing rewards, she told me she played it before with her sister when they were children. She was so excited about this, and once again her enthusiasm was infectious.
I used to hold the record for fastest speedrun of this game, you know.
You did not. There's no such thing as a speed run of a clicker game, and if there was, that record would be held by a bot.
We teased each other like that, laughing and sharing little meaningless anecdotes, and I didn't notice her shifting closer to me, getting more comfortable. We were too comfortable. A comfortable silence took over. Then Mallory leaned against me. Too nervous to move, I looked down. Her eyes were closed. She was falling asleep. For some reason, I let her stay there on my shoulder. I studied her. The ornate brooch she wore on her sweater dress, the cute pin she wore in her silky hair, her creamy skin and narrow shoulders, the plunging white lace bra. My throat tightened up. This was not okay. Slowly, with deliberate care, I slid away from her. I used a throw cushion to lower her onto the couch, trying my best not to wake her. I placed a blanket over her. She continued to breathe deeply, in and out, unmoving. According to my clock, it was only just past 7. I was surprised Mallory had fallen so deeply asleep already. She looked like she'd been there for the rest of the night. Maybe I shouldn't even let her help with so many chores, I thought, but then I was getting pretty sleepy too. I crept into the kitchen and, as quietly as I could, made my nightly cup of herbal tea. We snacked all afternoon so I wasn't hungry, but that cup of tea before bed was an absolute must. Carefully, I carried my mug upstairs, setting in so as not to disturb Mallory. It wasn't long before I was dozing off, tea only half gone. My body had been warmed by the fire, which made it all too easy to drift off to sleep. That night I dreamt of the chicken coop being empty. There were only traces left behind of the hens, and their feathers were scattered everywhere on the ground. Coyotes must have spirited them away, my dream brain thought. I remember pocketing one of the feathers, walking around the woods in search of them. It was a very strange dream unlike any other I had before. Chapter 5 Maturation. I woke up to the sun shining at an unfamiliar angle through my bedroom window. I checked the time and realized I'd slept in, not by much, but still weird. I decided I must have needed the extra sleep. I knew stress could drain the body's energy, and yeah, I had been stressed over the past couple of days. But the house smelled amazing again, and my stomach clenched and unclenched in hunger. There was nothing, absolutely nothing to be unhappy about. I got out of bed, got dressed, and made my way down the creaky staircase. Something struck me as I reached the bottom step. The chairs were tucked in at the table, blankets were neatly folded on the couch, and I was pretty sure the floor had been swept again, and it all made me feel so much calmer than usual. I never knew how much my home's cleanliness could affect my mood.
Morning, sleepyhead. Your breakfast is waiting.
I turned around. Mallory was standing extremely close to me. I thought about stepping back, but then I forgot because her cheeks were flushing red, and I was pretty sure mine were too.
Good morning to you too. First things first, though.
I went to grab the temperature scanner and held it up between us.
Oh, right, of course.
She lifted her hair out of the way and let me scan her forehead. Scanner beeped happily. Somehow I felt even more relieved than the other times I checked and found her temperature normal. Mallory danced away from me, then spun back around. Suddenly, there was a large plate of food under my nose. I grinned.
It isn't much, but I thought it would be good to have a high-calorie meal since we both worked so hard yesterday.
It didn't seem possible, but the breakfast looked even more incredible than the one she made yesterday. The plate held a rainbow of foods, sliced red strawberries on a tower of golden pancakes, drizzled with amber soup, a stir-fry of rice with orange and yellow peppers, surrounded by fresh, crisp, glistening greens and a perfect soft-boiled egg. My mouth watered. She's certainly come a long way.
I did use the last of the eggs in your fridge to make this. I hope that's okay. I went out to check the coop for more, but there were none.
I'd already grabbed the plate and started eating. Through a mouthful of pancakes, I mumbled an incoherent reply to her and shook my head up and down.
Sometimes it takes them a day or two, but we'll have more eggs soon.
She smiled and sat down across from me with her own plate. She ate her breakfast with far more elegance than I ate mine. After we'd finished breakfast, I gathered up my pouch of first aid supplies so I could clean and rewrap Mallory's leg. My gaze landed on the box of disposable masks tucked at the back of the drawer, the ones I'd been wearing each day when medical care necessitated getting up close and personal with her. But not when we'd been working outside or in the aquaponics room, or when she sat next to me on the couch while I played my video game. I slid the drawer shut, deciding not to bother with a mask. Two of us chatted a little while I tended to her wound.
So I guess I worked you too hard yesterday, huh?
What makes you say that?
You fell asleep at like 7 o'clock last night.
Mallory flushed pink again. She didn't seem sure how to respond.
It's okay. You learned a lot yesterday, and learning is hard work. I probably went a little overboard with the teaching.
No, but I enjoyed it so much.
It made me really happy to hear her say that. Once I finished fixing her bandages, I got up to peer outside. The sky above was blue, but there were gray clouds gathering in the distance. I decided to check the forecast. I stood at my desk, waiting for the computer to boot up and connect to the web. Once it did, a number of notifications popped up, chiming cheerily. Followed them to my email inbox and glanced through my unread messages. One work update, a couple of newsletters, something from a coupon service I didn't remember signing up for, and of course a bunch more hogwash forwards about many cures my doctor didn't want me to know about. Let's see. Nine here. Read the spam, just for fun. I clicked open one of the email forwards, smirking.
Hey, Mallory. Have you heard about this one weird trick for removing viral toxins?
Removing them from where?
It doesn't actually say, but there's a grainy picture of someone laying what looks like lasagna noodles across their stomach. So I'm assuming it's nothing to do with that. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many of these I get. They're so stupid.
I closed out of the email and deleted it along with the others. I pulled up a weather forecast.
Partly cloudy this morning with a chance of scattered showers throughout the afternoon and overnight. And it looks like tomorrow's gonna be rainy all day.
I felt like a little bit of a chump for panicking about the water. I looked up at Mallory.
Maybe there'll be enough water for a luxurious bath after all.
She grimaced, then giggled.
I should probably do a few things outside though. Get the basic chores done before the weather turns.
I'll help.
I wasn't sure. I could tell she was sore from yesterday, and I was so worried about her leg. Also, why was she so insistent on doing so much?
How about you just keep me company this time?
Oh, alright.
We headed outside. The sunshine was strong, but there was a chill in the air that hadn't been present yesterday. Occasional clouds moved past the sun, casting cold showers over the garden. A flock of geese passed over us, noisy and energized.
They're flying south to escape the coming cold. They probably have their own tropical paradise somewhere, with their own beach houses where they spend all winter sunbathing and drinking margaritas. Just kidding, geese don't do that stuff. But wouldn't it be nice to go on a vacation like that?
I don't know. I've never been on a vacation.
I frowned, pausing to bend and pull up a stray dandelion poking out on the grass.
Maybe someday someone will figure out a way to stop the virus, and you'll be able to go somewhere amazing.
Not by myself, I hope.
No, definitely not by yourself.
We walked around the property, Mallory humming happily to herself while I putted out, checking the well, making sure the hens were happy and fed, yanking more dandelions out of the ground when I saw them. Pretty soon, Mallory had grabbed a bucket and started pulling weeds too. It was like she couldn't help herself. I shook my head.
That's probably enough hard labor for the day. Let's go in. I need to do some work on my computer.
Oh, not just yet. Please. I'd like to enjoy the fresh air a little while longer before the rain comes.
Ah, okay. If you're good, then I'm good.
I reached down for another clump of weeds and felt my stomach flip when I saw a big black spider clinging onto the leaves I'd pulled. I flicked my hand reflexively, which sent the weed and the creepy crawly flying across the garden.
Ugh. Stay on the alert for spiders.
Spiders are awesome.
Oh yes, I've already met a few of them. They're so helpful chasing off all the harmful bugs.
She likes spiders? Damn, she's awesome. Of course, Mallory would treat spiders with the same kind of adoration any cuddly pet deserved. We continued pulling weeds together side by side, trying to keep the pace slow and casual. Despite that, and despite the heavy clouds moving in, we were both sweating pretty soon.
Phew, I am hot.
Here you are.
I almost want to take my sweater off.
She said this with a giggle, standing up straight to stretch her back and survey the neat-looking garden. I felt myself blush, embarrassed by the suggestion and the image my mind conjured up. Is she being flirty? Try flirting back.
Taking your sweater off won't change anything.
I gave an exaggerated wink. She blinked at me and immediately wished the ground would open up and swallow me whole. Took her a moment to process the joke, but when it clicked, she burst out laughing. Her laugh made me laugh too. We were interrupted when Mallory's stomach decided to let out a high-pitched growl. She stopped laughing and clasped her hands on her stomach.
Sorry. My tummy must be hungry after all that work.
Mine is too. And I think I felt a raindrop just now, which is probably our cue to head inside. Do you want to meet me in there? I'll pick some things to make us a strawberry salad.
Wow, that sounds so delicious. I'll see you in a bit.
Grabbed the bucket off the porch and spent a few minutes in the garden gathering ingredients. Few raindrops pelted me here and there. Quickly, I hurried back inside, following Mallory's footsteps. By the time we'd finished eating lunch, the gray clouds had fully taken over the sky and rain clung in droplets to the cabin's windows.
Well, if we get as much rain as the forecast predicts, the rain barrel sure will be happy.
Those are the big containers on the side of the house?
Yeah, you're getting good at this. It's probably the #1 most important system I have here. The water those 4 barrels can hold can last a long time, as long as I'm careful with it.
No luxurious baths. No water balloon fights either, I'm guessing. Just basic cleaning, cooking, and drinking, right?
Jeez, you make me sound like someone who doesn't know how to have fun. You're pretty much right, though. But you can't just drink rainwater. It wouldn't be safe.
Oh?
The water picks up a lot of things before it makes its way into the barrel. Pollution from the air, chemicals, dirt and bird droppings from the roof.
Ew.
Yeah, it's gross. So I add chemicals to the water and filter it to make it clean and safe. I'll have to show you how all that stuff works. Cleaning the water, using the spigots.
She turned her head to look me right in the eyes.
You're really smart. I like hearing about all the systems you use here.
My cheeks burned under the shock of her beautiful gaze, the admiration I saw in her eyes. I nodded, not knowing what else to say. After that conversation, I went to check the solar batteries. They were full, which was good. The power they'd bank would last us a few days if necessary. Then the two of us settled down in the living room. I worked at my computer while Mallory gently explored my things and eventually nestled into the couch with a book to flip through. It was oddly effortless. The silence and comfort that filled the room all through the afternoon. Gradually, the sky darkened and so did the interior of the cabin. It was probably long past time for a break when Mallory closed her book and stood up, teetering just a little on her bad leg.
Can I make us some tea?
I leaned back in my chair.
That sounds like a very good idea. Yes, please.
She meandered into the kitchen and pulled the kettle on to boil. I stood up and went to the utility room so I could switch off the inverter. There likely wouldn't be any more sunlight for the next while, so I decided to reduce the load on the solar batteries and only run off DC power for the rest of the night. I heard something coming from the kitchen, like a small stifled cough. I listened hard to see if it would come again, but it didn't.
She's probably just clearing her throat.
I came back out into the kitchen and took a seat at the table. Mallory brought over 2 steaming mugs and set them down.
Honey?
Yes, dear?
We both froze. I felt my cheeks suddenly warm. "Why did you say that?" screamed my brain.
I meant honey for your tea?
Yep, you did.
Got him. Felt like such an idiot. The reply had flown from my mouth before I even had a chance to think about it. "Okay," I said to myself. "Now salvage this."
And I was saying, yes, I will have honey for my tea. And then I was very rudely interrupted mid-thought by a deer that definitely exists and totally ran past the window.
It's one of my quirky things. Mallory laughed, but it was a "you're cute" kind of laugh, not an "I'm laughing at you" kind of laugh, so I felt better. After bringing over the honey and some spoons, Mallory sat by me and picked up her mug. She took a drink and made a strange little noise in her throat.
Ooh, I just burned my tongue.
See, that's why I always let mine cool down for a minute or two.
I couldn't do that. It smelled too delicious to wait.
I got up and poured her a glass of cold water.
Here, this will help.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
After taking a few sips of water, she set down her glass and looked at me with a sad, soft smile.
So, why would someone as nice as you feel the need to set bear traps right in front of their home?
Well, someone has to protect the chickens. The question caught me by surprise. I didn't know she'd even been thinking about it. Of course, it seemed obvious now. She had acted far too chipper and unconcerned when the accident happened. She must have been holding back, was just now feeling safe enough to question why she'd been hurt in the first place. I nodded slowly.
Well, I don't know who this nice person is you're talking about, but I can tell you why I have traps set up around my house. It's all because of Lola.
Ooh, is that a stalker ex-girlfriend? Do you have to defend your property from a lot of girls?
No, it's nothing like that.
I paused to take a sip of tea, taking care to blow on it a few times before drinking. For some reason, I couldn't quite look at Mallory then, though I could see from the corner of my eye that she was listening intently.
Lola was my best friend, my beautiful Bernese mountain dog. She was the family pet, really, but me and her, we had a special bond. After my parents passed away, Lola and I took care of each other. She was a hard worker. She was by my side always, finding little ways to help me out. You definitely would have loved her. She had one brown eye and one blue eye, and her heart was made of gold.
Mallory nodded softly, wrapping her hands around her mug of tea.
One fall evening, I was inside working on the computer, and Lola was outside on the deck, just enjoying the cold. Bernese mountain dogs are, as the name implies, mountain dogs, and they're made to be out in the snow. She loved snow. The deeper, the better. But it hadn't snowed yet that year.
A surge of emotion came over me. I had never told anyone this story before. I needed to pause and drink more tea to stop myself from caving to the sorrow.
Lola started barking, and I ignored her. Because she was always barking at squirrels and birds and things, thinking she was protecting our territory. What a silly dog. But this time, it wasn't a squirrel or a bird. I actually don't even know for sure what it was. But the tracks I found later looked like they might have come from a grizzly.
Mallory gasped and held her hands up to her face. I felt like if I stopped, I wouldn't be able to start again, so I just kept going.
When I realized how urgent her barking was, I ran outside. But she was already gone. That eerie silence is something I'll never forget. I searched for her all night and all the next day. I never found her. Just tracks and some blood and fur. I don't know if a bear grabbed her and took her, or if she went chasing after it, or what. I just know I've never been so angry in my whole life. I was already dealing with the pain of losing my parents, and now Lola was gone too. After that, I pulled out all my family's old traps from the shed and set them up around the house. It was too little too late, but I needed to feel like I was doing something. It never occurred to me that a human might get hurt in one, and I'm really, really sorry that you did.
I looked up to see Mallory nodding vigorously, wiping tears from her eyes.
I don't fault you at all for what happened to my leg. I was the one who trespassed in the dead of night.
Yeah, that's true.
She let out a short laugh through her tears sniffling. I got out of my chair again to find her some tissues. When I handed them to her, I found myself giving her narrow shoulder a squeeze.
I'm so sorry about Lola. That's a heartbreaking story.
Sorry I made you cry.
No. I'm glad you shared that with me.
For a moment, I wondered if this was it, the moment she would start to open up and share her story with me too. Why had she been outside my house, in the middle of nowhere, in the rain at night, all alone? Maybe I should encourage her.
Okay, it's your turn.
What for?
To tell me something about you. Something real. Like maybe what brought you here?
A look of discomfort crossed her face. She still didn't want to tell me. And I have to end it here because I have to prepare for work. Oh boy, this is getting intense. This is Cabin Fever. Ha! If you want to try the game for yourselves, the links are in the description. It's on Steam. I bought it when it was Steam sale. God damn it. Fuck Steam. I got so many games I want to play. That is all for today. Stay safe and take care of yourselves.